science and rational thinking. Since a little before I met Rick Doblin, about 30 years ago now. Rick, it keeps getting longer every time I say I want to be an episode there. It's like, it used to be 20 years. So I am a believer in psychedelic research. I am a believer in the people that are standing behind me right now. I'm going to let each person introduce themselves, just so everybody gets a little bit more time. So the way this is going to work, and I'm reminding my panel, you guys are going to get about 5 minutes to just say who you are and what you do and what's important to you. And then we're going to ask some questions, and then we're really going to open it up and just have a discussion. And with that, I guess we're just going to go left to right. So Dr. Richard Doblin will begin. And then you can have a little something to eat, but you're timing yourself. Good.
Not so good with keeping to time, but first off, thank you all for coming here. It's really good to have these discussions in public. I'd also like to invite you all to the mall tonight at 11 o'clock for Burning Man on the Mall as part of our drug war vigil. And we have a permit for it, and we'll be there till sunrise. And so we have breakfast coming at 7 a.m. for 150 people. So hopefully, so we're sort of specializing in getting permission for things. So basically, MAPS is a non-profit pharmaceutical company trying to develop psychedelics and marijuana into FDA-approved prescription medicines. And so that means working at the same level that the pharmaceutical industry does, trying to meet the same standards of safety and efficacy, and really having it be evaluated by FDA scientists and working with DEA licensing, with institutional review boards, and we've been doing this. Actually, I met Julian in 1985, and 1986 is when I started MAPS. And so we've really been, for the last 15 years, doing studies in patient populations, starting with post-traumatic stress disorder, and then also now working with autistic adults with social anxiety, and also with people with life-threatening illnesses who are anxious about dying. And we just got permission a week ago last Friday for a study that's just a major breakthrough. It's with couples therapy, where one of the couple has PTSD. It's been developed by VA-affiliated therapists. We can never make couples therapy into medicine because it's not a disease or relationship. So the only kind of things that we can turn through the FDA are treatment of diseases, and that's why the FDA model is limited. It's important, but that's why we're here at the Drug Policy Alliance conference, because a lot of the uses of MDMA, of other psychedelics, go outside of the medical model. But what we've seen with marijuana is that medicalization changes people's attitudes towards legalization. So what we've learned so far, first off, is that MDMA can be administered safely in a clinical setting. And that's important because there's been a lot of concerns about neurotoxicity. A lot of people were saying one dose, permanent brain damage, long-term functional consequences, and we shouldn't even be allowed to do research to even see if it was that dangerous. And that was quite a difficult hurdle to overcome. People were saying, we already know it's so dangerous that we can't even allow you to do research. So from 1986 till 1992, we tried about 5 or 6 different protocols. Were all rejected by the FDA on this fear of MDMA neurotoxicity. So that's, since now that we've been able to get the data, we can definitely say that MDMA can be administered safely in a clinical setting. And we're also able to say that we are getting very promising evidence of efficacy. And we work with the most difficult cases. We work with chronic treatment-resistant PTSD, and we've been demonstrating that even for people who have failed on other alternatives, that MDMA-assisted psychotherapy can make fundamental changes in how they respond. We've also used double-blind placebo-controlled studies, and so what we've been able to tell is that the therapy component of what we administer can be effective itself in reducing PTSD symptoms. But when you add the MDMA, it's more than twice as effective. So what that means to us is that the MDMA is more important in contributing to the overall outcomes than the therapists. But that doesn't mean that the therapists aren't crucially important. It just means that there's something pharmacological that the MDMA does about how we process fear and how we process fearful emotions that enables people to do more and more what we're learning about in terms of memory reconsolidation. We're learning that the FDA is open to this kind of research, that the FDA is different than the National Institute on Drug Abuse, different than the DEA. Their institutional mission is trying to provide drugs to help people that are suffering, and so they're sort of out from under the drug war. They were part of the drug war from the middle 60s to 1990 when they permitted the first study with psychedelics. But that change was able to happen without any changes in laws, without any changes in regulations, but just by interpretation that was different in terms of the risk-benefit balance. So individual bureaucrats have been able to make a difference. We've also learned that, specifically for PTSD, that the work that we do is independent of the cause of PTSD. It works with women survivors of child sexual abuse, it works with war-related PTSD, and I think from a political point of view, what we've been trying to say is that these are treatments we're trying to develop that are not just for aging hippies who are part of the baby boom generation that took drugs in college. These are for the mainstream. And so one of the things we're most proud of is we were able to start LSD research for the first time in 45 years in Switzerland. It was for people with a life-threatening illness who were scared about dying. It was a small pilot study of 12 people. 11 out of those 12 people had never done LSD before. So when people are suffering a crisis, they're willing to go to unusual means. And also, in our study with PTSD, we've actually been able to attract firefighters and a police officer. So even a police officer who was sort of trained to suppress these things in a moment of suffering was willing to reach out. And so we're also finally able to learn that we're at this crucial transition now between the phase 2 pilot studies and the phase 3 definitive pivotal studies. And we're summarizing the data from over 100 PTSD patients. It's taken us 15 years, over $6 million. And we'll be negotiating with FDA, and we anticipate that it'll be roughly 400 patients, about $22 million, and 2021 is when we're projecting MDMA will be approved, and we already have over $11 million pledged or in hand for that process, and I think we'll be able to do it. So I think the main message I'd like to leave you with is that there is a route to develop psychedelics through the FDA. We're on track. You'll hear more about the work with psilocybin. The problem is with marijuana, there's still this fundamental government obstruction, which is the monopoly on the supply of DEA legal marijuana that's held by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, and we have to break that monopoly. And once that happens, then medical marijuana will be able to go through the FDA as well.
Great. Thanks very much. Just a quick thing. If anyone is sitting next to an empty seat, please raise your hand. Please have a seat.
All right, so it's hard to follow Rick Doblin, but my name is Alex Meltzer. I'm so excited to be here. I'm coming from New York University, in New York City, and at NYU we have 4 current trials using psilocybin currently ongoing, which I'll tell you a little bit about. But first, the question of the panel is, what is psychedelic research telling us? I conducted a qualitative study where I did in-depth interviews with some of the patients who had cancer and existential distress, and this is what one woman who was in her early 60s said about her experience. She said, I had feelings of being connected to everything. I mean everything in nature. Everything, even like pebbles, drops of water in the sea. It was like magic. It was wonderful. And it wasn't like talking about it, which makes it an idea. It was experiential. It was like being inside a drop of water, being inside a butterfly's wing, and being inside of a cheetah's eyes. Words fail me. It was wonderful, just wonderful. So, maybe some of you are wondering, like, what are psychedelics? And how do they work? And so, in the university setting, we have limited means, but we have some means of asking some of those questions. So, what do we know? We know that psychedelics, I'm talking about serotonergic psychedelics, the classic hallucinogens. We know that they're not habit-forming in animal models. We know that they're safe, effective to lethal drug dose ratios, exceedingly high, take an awful lot of most psychedelics to die. And we know that in supportive contexts, they are exceedingly safe and efficacious for a variety of clinical conditions. We also know, I'm coming at this having started an SSDP chapter in 2000 at my undergraduate university, and then working in prisons for 10 years. I actually applied for, I think, JAG's previous job in 2005. I didn't get an interview, but it was good because I came to NYU, and with the help of Julie Holland, we started a group called PRG, which is a psychedelic reading group, which within a year and a half turned into the psychedelic research group, and we started a study treating patients with cancer. But on the question of crime and recidivism with SSDP and its insaner drug laws, the national surveys show, just in the last couple of years, that you would expect that people who are on community justice supervision, parolees, that drug use would be associated with bad outcomes. That would be the sort of myth. What they find actually is that psychedelic use is associated with, is protected against recidivism in this population. So strangely, people who are on parole actually do better when taking psychedelics, and we don't know exactly why. The same thing is true across, for 190,000 United States adults. Most drugs are either not associated or negatively associated with high rates of suicide and increased psychological distress and anxiety and depression, except for the psychedelics, which are strangely protected against those things. At least they're negatively correlated with these indications. And that's in a controlled model, controlling for class, race, and other demographic variables. What's going on? At NYU, we're doing a number of things. So I'll just tell you about 3 studies. The first study is, we just finished, we're writing out the results, and we're looking to get them published. This is a study where we gave psilocybin to people who had cancer and incredible existential distress and clinically elevated anxiety. It was a supportive environment with 2 therapists. And the results are out. The results are that we had massive effect sizes in all of our outcome variables. The depression effect size is greater than 1. So our participants had, compared to people who did not get the active psilocybin, after 6 weeks, much lower rates of depression, much lower scores on clinical anxiety measures for both state and trait anxiety, lower death anxiety, lower demoralization, and lower hopelessness, and improved quality of life, improved spiritual well-being, and improved meaning and peace. Now, if these were small effects, there wouldn't be such an unexpected claim. But with anxiety and depression, the effect sizes are 1.1 to 1.3. To give you an idea, if you have an average intelligence, an IQ of 100, and you had an effect size with a treatment this large, you would go from being in a normal class to an advanced honors class. It's like a 20-point bump in IQ. So we're having massive changes and shifts in terms of our clinical measures. On our qualitative scale, our qualitative study, we had, I shared a quote from you. We found that the story about how psychedelics work may not be so simple. So the leading hypothesis, and we know that to be true, is that people may have a mystical type experience, and that will predict these really incredible clinical outcomes down the road, even up to a year out. And that may be true, but the question is, what does that look like? And the participants told us a variety of complex things about their lives. These mystical type experiences that they had, these really powerful spiritual experiences they had with psilocybin, were not like Zen, isolated individual on the mountain experiences. They were deeply relationally embedded. They were about their siblings, their mother, their father, their girlfriend, their child. And so they were relationally embedded, and they were about primary attachment relationships. We also realized that they were about the body. These people had cancer. They were having experiences where a powerful vision of having fear of their cancer, which was in their abdomen, exploding like a mushroom cloud from their chest, a black cloud, and then suddenly feeling liberated from the fear. Powerful feelings of having the cancer escape through their fingers. These were people who were in remission. that seem to be really, really meaningful for me. Finally, we have a lot of really interesting findings just coming out of the journal of the APA Journal of Humanistic Psychology. They're doing a special issue in the spring on psychedelics. And so you can find the findings there. A lot of really interesting work on the shadow. And what does that mean? How do we help people integrate difficult, trying, dark night of the soul's eco-death experiences? Are these distressing experiences something to be avoided or something to be worked through, and if so, how? And from our own participants, we have their personal stories about what worked for them. The last thing I'll tell you about later. It's really
Okay,